The regular season is over and it's officially playoffs. Who made it? Who didn't make it? Awards? Regular season awards? I think we could do some of those. Welcome to the D Stream.
This storm is coming like a ghost town. All the clubs are being closed down. This place is coming like a ghost town.
What's up, boys? We made it. We made it past all the regular season BS. Now we're here where it really counts, where your best record means nothing and the worst record means nothing because now everything is clean slate. Now it's battle of the finest, right? Battle of the fittest. Now it's about who's luckiest. Now is about who sets the better lineup, regardless of how well you've been setting up your lineup the entire season. Now, everything you've done up until now means squat, means nothing. And I think for a lot of people, that's the most beautiful part of fantasy. For me, since I'm in the loser bracket, I don't care. Um, but when I'm not in the loser bracket, when it's time for playoffs, I know very well that my regular season accolades and my regular season great form, it ends up meaning nothing because I usually get eliminated first round. So here we are. First week of playoffs, wild card, right? So there are a couple of teams that, or no, a few teams, a couple in the playoffs and a couple in the loser bracket that aren't going to play against anyone this week. We're going to cover all of that. I don't have a guest for today's show, um, but I do have a few players to talk about, or a couple players to talk about before we move forward. Wanted to address something um, that the league commissioner has pretty much decided not to comment on, and the culprit has also decided not to comment on. And it's basically that one of our league members, Alex, decided to pretty much try to sabotage the league by dropping all of his players into waivers, including his first round picks, his starters, his studs, and basically quit the league, but like that. Like he decided, hey, I'm no longer going to compete, but this is the way I'm going to do it. And this was all before decision week. So this is before his matchup in decision week. He was, if we recall, in a really important matchup on decision week. And, you know, it didn't sit well with a lot of league members, but most importantly, it didn't sit well with the league commissioner. And he basically made his feelings known. He said anyone who does anything like that in this league has a one-way ticket to permanent banishment. Let's see, though, if he stays true to his word. I have a feeling he will. I have a feeling that the culprit won't even want to be part of the league anymore. So it is what it is. Just wanted to really talk about that. I'm sure people have had that on their mind, maybe even slightly. Probably not anymore. That was kind of like a pre decision week thing that happened. We are past decision week. We're in playoffs. So I think what people really want to hear about is playoffs. So before we do, though, let's talk about something. An important question that has been brought up to my mind um, because of leagues past. And an important question is, will there be a reseed? This is something that I'm very, very curious to see how it goes. We're going to check now Sleeper in just a little bit to see if there has been a reseed. But it would be interesting to see the playoffs kind of mix up last minute. That would definitely be interesting. Before we get to that, let's go and review the YouTube comments. Okay, here we are. The first comment from Dave was Marca is true last place watch. What an analysis, Shanzi. Dave, and we're gonna let's talk about the other Dave comment before we move forward to anybody else. Dave was a very huge fan of Sean because right here, the rumors say their chemistry can't be denied. Did Lee find himself a new co-host? I love this comment because I did feel like the chemistry was on when Sean was on the show. We were kind of doing some really it was really fluid. We were getting we were bouncing off each other and our ideas were bouncing off each other and it was very natural because his segments they weren't planned or anything. He's just like, "Hey dude, can you check this out?" And it automatically turned into just really interesting, informative content. And honestly, I want to also thank Sean for being on the show and just for being really on your toes, improvisationally creative like that. Um, Andy, another entertaining stream. Sean left out St. Brown getting injured right away and getting me zero. And he'll most likely still be in second place. Nonetheless, GG's final week. Get your popcorn ready, boys. And it was an interesting week, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. I'm guessing the St. Brown thing was a Thursday night or something. Well, no, it wouldn't be. No, it's just yeah, it was the matchup. I remember. Okay. Yeah. And final week was crazy. And we're gonna talk about why. Danny, another fantastic stream, might have to sign Sean up for a 2-day contract to maybe be co-host. Another person, I see this one I hadn't read. Another person who was really impressed with Sean on the stream. He really liked the back and forth dynamic we had. So that's awesome, man. Congrats, Sean. You have fans, dude, on the show. I think I might have to bring you back. I'm not gonna lie. And then right here, whether it was intentional or not, Dave doesn't need to be mentioned. That was regarding when I was like listing the teams, and I had completely missed Dave. It was not intentional, but there's like a saying that says nothing is accidental. So maybe in the back of my mind, I was like, man, forget this guy, like literally. So yeah, those were the YouTube comments. Um, I'm gonna be very interested in seeing this, like the for this episode, this week's YouTube comments, because there's a lot of things we're gonna talk about today, man. And it starts off with let's go to sleeper, let's go to our league. But before we begin, we're gonna talk about awards. However, it's not just weekly awards. We are done with the regular season. We are in playoffs. So I have a list of a few regular season awards that culminates the entire season from beginning to end. But I think most importantly, just from like the when the podcast, I mean the D stream started to now. But I mean, it still kind of encompasses some of those things. The first award is going to go to most improved team. There were a lot of teams that had their ups and downs in this season. But none other than Bill was the most impressive because today I was watching all the streams, um, and I was watching the first episode, and in that first episode, Bill was 3-5, with Marcos and I being 2-7, only one game from us, and everybody else was like Andy was 6-2, right? You had a lot of 5-3 teams, but 3-5 is just ridiculously bad for somebody who ends up finishing 8-6. Let's look at him right here, 8-6. That means he went on a 5-1 game streak, winning 5 games, only losing one in his journey. And obviously, he wins that first place spot on the Homestead Homies with a winning record. Makes it look like we might have not been the trash division after all. It might have been, yeah, like 2 trash teams, but he was never the trash. But it doesn't tell the whole story. And that's why, Bill, you are getting most improved team. Now, It's fair to say, although we're gonna bring it up later, but Bill did get saved by the commissioner inadvertently. We'll talk about that in just a bit. But the next regular season award goes to Choke Artist of the Year. And the Choke Artist of the Year goes to the player who originally had won the award for most likely to pay for the belt's shipping fee, which is Danny. Danny went from being a favorite for me to win it all to being eliminated. Um, he is eliminated also because of the commissioner. And again, we will talk about that in just a little bit. But he will no longer be paying shipping fees. So I guess that's the silver lining of this whole thing. Danny, I'm sorry because it is a kind of an ongoing joke, but I might have jinxed you, man. I might have really jinxed you. It wasn't on purpose. It couldn't have been. I have no control over that. But it's just very interesting how you're just on fire. The D stream starts, and you take a turn for the worst, being a super huge fan of the show. And Bill, also, who's a super huge fan of the show, takes a turn for the best. So amazing. Most improved team, Bill, and choke artist of the year goes to Danny. Hottest team of the season is the same team that I had as hottest team of the season when I first started this D stream, which is Ronald. Ronald finishes not only 9-5 with one of the highest records next to Dave, Andy, and Sean, but he also finishes with the most points for. And we'll get into that data in just a little bit. But basically, Ronald, you win hottest team of the season. Um, and now I'm going to mention someone who hasn't been mentioned that much on the show. And the winner of this award, the award for sneakiest clinch, the person who clinches the playoffs in the sneakiest ways. And it was because he also was like he had a really tough record. He went on like maybe a 4 or 5 game winning streak, and it's Freddie. Freddie gets sneakiest clinch of the season. Um, and it just reinforces my theory that the minute the D stream started, Freddie took it personal. Yeah. We said he was Shaquille O'Neal. Maybe he was Michael Jordan all along. And he's like, I made the D League Wars, and next thing you know, Leo makes the D stream, and I took it personal. It was personal for me. And he went on a 5 game winning streak, might have been. And it doesn't really say here. It does on the phone app, but it doesn't say really the or so I don't think the like the form your streak on the phone app. It tells you, oh, I'm on a 2 game 3 game winning streak. um so I don't really have the exact data. We can look at it, but it's no point. But yeah, Freddie, you win sneakiest clinch. um the next award goes to biggest letdown, and I think the biggest letdown is your favorite Cuban. We're gonna talk about in detail a little bit more later, but I guess we can talk about it now. This is week 13, right? And the reason being was we were at Twin Peaks yesterday, not yesterday, on Saturday, watching the Inter Miami game. Which, shout out, Inter Miami are champions of the MLS Cup champs. Lionel Messi, Jordi Alba, Sergio Busquets, Rodrigo de Paul, Luis Suarez, the best of the best players came to Miami with a mission to do what the Miami Heat could never do, and it's to get the job done. Let's see if the Miami Heat can get the job done tonight, which is Cup night, quarterfinals, Miami Heat versus the Orlando Magic. Let's hope that they do get the job done, but we know at least one Miami team gets the job done, and it's Inter Miami, and that's why you see behind me the pink light. We are celebrating MLS champs Inter Miami. But back to the story. We went to go watch the game. Adrian was there at Twin Peaks, and he came up to me at a certain point in the day, and he's like, "Dude, can you please explain to me what has to happen for me to make it? Because I don't understand why with this record I'm not in playoffs." I told him because divisions, the first team of each division goes through. So because of that, at that moment before the decision week was final, Bill, and this was on a Saturday, so it wasn't happening yet. But Bill was technically taking him out of playoffs. I told him, in order for you to win, Sean, Danny, and Freddie, no, Sean, Andy, and who was it? Sean, Andy, yeah, Sean, Andy, and Danny had to lose. One of those three teams had to lose for you to make the playoffs. No, sorry. Two of three. Sorry, guys. Two of those three teams had to lose. What happens? Andy loses. Sean wins. That's fine. So one already happened. Danny needed to lose. Oh, actually, Danny wins. Okay, no, that doesn't make sense. Never mind. Um, wait, no, dude, am I on the wrong week, bro? I am in the wrong week. Okay, week 14. So Danny needed to lose. Sean needed to lose. And Andy needed to lose. Where's Andy? Bro, I'm drunk as hell right now. What's going on? This is Danny. Andy. Okay. So one, two, and where's Sean? Sean. Okay. So two of three needed to lose, and he needed to win. Two of three did lose. Sean lost, and Danny lost. Andy won. That's fine. But Adrian needed to win in order to make it through, and he didn't. And because of that, if I'm not mistaken, let me see. Let's look at the points really quick. 1940. Sean 18. Yeah. So because of that, Adrian needed to win. That was the first thing. Obviously, you need to win, but you need two of three to lose. And we were kind of thinking like, because at the moment, two or maybe all three were projected to win. So he's like, oh, it's over. And I'm like, no, man, you never know. You just need two of them to lose. And at that moment, I think Danny was having a like a good Thursday game, or somebody was having a good Thursday game, and it just didn't end up happening. Sean got destroyed, and Danny got absolutely obliterated by his own team. So those two out of three they lost, but Adrian lost. So the biggest letdown, going full circle again. Sorry, I'm rambling, but the biggest letdown is Adrian. He was super sad at Twin Peaks. Also, that's a note that I have right there. He's very sad. He's like, "Oh man, I'm not gonna make it." Blah blah. He should have been more positive because the what needed to happen happened. He needed to win though, and he lost to Bringus, who was also there. Maybe Bringus overheard and he's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna play spoiler, bro. So just chill out." Um, Shout out to Bringus. It was a fun night, fun day, afternoon. The next award goes to sorest loser. We've never had these type of awards before, so this is really cool. There's only one award that I'm gonna repeat, and you guys all know what it is. And it's next. The sorest loser is Alex. Alex dropped his whole team, said "F this league, I'm out of here," and Dave had to go do a last minute thing where he got Frank back into the league, but instead of taking over his old team, which was bring his team, he takes over Alex's team, tries to save the day, doesn't do that well. I mean, he scores 1-2-2, right? Man, if that's a sign that Frank has to be in the league, I mean, there's no better sign than that, honestly. Welcome back, Frank. But yeah, Alex, you are the sorest loser. Dropped his players and he committed chat suicide. The award, obviously, that has been around before is Last Place Watch. But this is not the award that we're going to be talking about right now. We're talking about a crazier one. This is all time Last Place Watch. Why all time, you might ask? Because as we had talked with Sean, he finished when he was the official Last Place Watch of that season where he went on just an incredible run of losing. He finished 4-10. Marcos finished 3-11. So he wins the award for the shittiest team of all time in this league, at least in the podcast slash stream era. He wins all time last place watch. Congratulations, Marcos. Not only are you a 3-time or 4-time champ, I think 4-time champ in this league, but you're also taking the award for worst team ever. It's crazy, man. The range is just, it's undeniable. The last award goes to best podcast host. And I'm going to give it to myself because I feel like, and I am going to toot my own horn. I'm going to be as arrogant as it comes, but I think I'm a great podcast host. I have brought back life into this league where it was kind of boring and kind of uninteresting. We have revitalized the drama, the hunger, the interestingness, right? The relevance a little bit. And I give myself best podcast host. Now you might ask, oh, you're the only podcast host. No, I'm not. Freddie was also a podcast host. So in the running was me versus Freddie. Freddie had one podcast all season. He said they were going to be bi-weekly. We are in week 14. That means there should have been 7 D League War episodes by now. And there have been one. This is my theory. And this is part of the reason. And this is a shout out to Freddie. I hope he's watching. I know he's part of the D League Haters United, D Stream Haters United. Hopefully he watches this episode, right? Of all episodes. But Freddie, I'm talking to you right now, Freddie. And one of the main reasons why I had a problem with Freddie being a co-host was because in the weeks, and we've mentioned this in the podcast before, so this is nothing new. But in the seasons where we were in the D League podcast, the weeks in which he would lose, it would be practically impossible to get him to want to record an episode. He was just so morally distraught every time he would lose that it was just such an impossible thing to get him on the podcast. When we would usually record on Tuesdays, the weeks where he would lose, we record on Thursdays or Fridays, like just like last minute stuff. And it was too much for me to bear as the producer. And that's part of the reason why he's not on the podcast. So I just thought I should mention that. A little bit of jab. Freddie, you are soft, and I am the best podcast host. If you have a problem with it, I'll be awaiting your end of season D League Wars episode, if that's even going to come out. Ball is on your court. But those were the regular season awards, boys. I hope that you enjoyed them. Now we're going to move on to results, which we kind of already touched base a little bit. This was a really like not so important game. However, it ends up being super important. Why? Because I had a chance of doing not so well and sharing the all-time last place watch award. I could have been 3-11 with Marcos. So could have. Well, no, he lost. Who was it? Okay, yeah, and he won. All right. So yeah, it was basically between me and Marcos. Marcos could have won. We would have still shared it, right? We would have probably even shared it with Alex's team, which is now Frank's team. But talking about Alex's team, we could have shared it there. But in the end, I win this game. And it's so important because this puts me at 4-10. I tie Sean's last place watch season record. And I leave Marcos alone with the worst record of the league and the worst record in history of this league in the podcast era. So congratulations to me. This is also a red flag for Ronald, saying, I don't know how well you're going to do in playoffs if this is what you're going to be doing. Second last place watch, second place last, me beat you, Ronald, which is the hottest team. So, hey, maybe you might not be so hot, Ronald. Let's move on to this next one. Freddie with a miraculous win. This one to sentence him into playoffs, but also to eliminate Danny. And we're going to talk about how Danny really got eliminated numbers wise. But when it comes to results wise, this was the nail in the coffin. Freddie got it done and sent Danny to the loser bracket. I'll see you there, Dan. The next one, Dave versus Sean. This was a huge game, but why was it huge? Because there were two Thursday games. Jahmyr Gibbs and the defensive player, Campbell. 30 points from his defensive player on a Thursday night game, 37 points from his running back one on a Thursday night game, giving him 67 points between two players against Sean. Sean had pretty much accepted defeat at that moment. But he knew, deep down inside, he knew. And I think because he was such a gracious co host last podcast, he knew that somehow I'm going to make it through. And that he did. So, congratulations to Sean. Dave coming in hot into playoffs. That's going to be very interesting to see. I still kind of don't know who the two bye weeks are. So, that's going to be interesting to see in just a second. Alex's team lost. Andy needed to win. It was a huge victory for Andy, being that he had to beat a team that scored 1-2-2. Takes a lot to do that. 136, and he gets it done. Andy finishes 9-5 and is on his way into the playoffs. This was the game that we talked about. That by 3 points, man, by 3 points, Adrian could have gotten it done. Just needed to win because everything else was in his favor. He couldn't get it done. Bring us. I didn't give a. I didn't give an award to Bring Us. You know what? Additional award. Spoiler of decision week, and essentially spoiler of the week of the season is Bring Us. Freddie is not a spoiler because Freddie needed to win to make it into playoffs. But this was also a spoiler game. But this is a true spoiler game. Someone who had no chance of making it and spoils the chance for Adrian, especially because Adrian, the cards were all there. He everything that needed to happen, it happened for him, but he needed to win. So, Bring Us, you do receive an award. Spoiler of the season. And the last matchup, this didn't matter. The only thing that it does is it decides that Bill is going into playoffs hot, very hot. Okay, maybe not as hot as Dave. What are the chances that his team from now through the championship week keeps putting up those just cagalicious points? It's gonna be tough. But Bill, Bill's known for something that Danny won this season, choke artist of the year. We will have, I guess, playoff awards later, maybe. That might be something interesting. To finish it off, these are the rankings: 9-5, Dave, Freddie 8-6, Ron 9-5, Adrian 8-6, Andy 9-5, Sean at 9-5, and then Bill at 8-6. Now, this doesn't really show it because I have no way of turning it into a league. So I made a Google Doc where we will see what the true record was. Okay. So right here we go record wise, Ronald, Andy, Dave, and Sean all at 9-5, right? Bill at 8-6, Freddie 8-6, Danny 8-6, Adrian 8-6. But now we got to look at points for, right? And I didn't format this. I'm just gonna look at just records, individual records. So we got 8-6, Bill with 2032. 8-6, Freddie. 8-6, Danny. 8-6, Adrian. Right? So right there, you have someone basically it's fair. Everyone who made it into playoffs, I think it's fair, right? We can say Bill 8-6 at 2032, Danny at 1950. Yeah. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, I had looked at this differently earlier. But what it's showing me, 9-5. 9-5, 9-5, 9-5. They all made it. So it was between the 8 and 6s. Bill had the best 8 and 6 points for. So Bill doesn't make it because of divisions. I was wrong. Freddie had the second best, and he makes it in. Danny had the third best. Adrian had the fourth best. Okay, so yeah, never mind. A, a season where we had divisions end up not mattering. I don't know why earlier I was looking at it, I'm like, oh, something happened where the divisions affected something. I guess not. Maybe my IQ is fried right now. I've had a lot to do today. So maybe there's something I'm not seeing, or maybe there was something I was not seeing earlier. But from what it looks like, uh from what it looks like, yeah, no one gets eliminated because of divisions. It was just fair game. Uh yeah, Danny loses fair and square. I guess what he needed to score 14, 15 more points than what he scored. Or he needed to win, really. Yeah, basically. He needed to win. And he didn't win. Because Adrian also lost. Danny loses. Okay. So yeah. Divisions don't affect it. So it just so happens that the divisions were pointless the whole time. Um, does this give credit to the commissioner though? Now this is another question, a very important analytical question that and philosophical question that we must ask ourselves. Does this give credit to the commissioner that the divisions don't matter and everyone who was supposed to go through ends up going through, making divisions obsolete, making divisions pointless? But at the same time, how much more interesting was this season because of divisions? And that's a question that we must ask ourselves, D League members. Philosophically, we must look to the stars and ask ourselves, was the commissioner onto something? Is the commissioner a visionary? Is the commissioner just so ahead of his time that we simple minds cannot fathom, cannot appreciate the subtleties of a genius? Leave those answers in the comments for this episode. That's a good one. That's the prompt, guys. That's the prompt for this week. Is Dave ahead of his time? Is Dave a visionary? Or did he just make divisions for no reason? That's a question for you guys. Let's talk about the playoff bracket. But before we do that, let's talk about the loser bracket. Losers, me and Marcos. We get the bye. We don't have to play next week. Thank goodness I don't have to set my lineup. But who does have to set their lineup? Bringus versus Adrian. Oh, RIP, bro. Adrian's going to have to battle against Bringus. Once again, actually, this is a rematch. Rematch right in playoffs. And then Danny versus Alex's old team, aka Frank now. Um, and whoever wins out of those two goes against me. No, whoever loses from those two goes against me. Whoever loses out of these two goes against Marcos. I have a feeling that Marcos and I will be facing off. So, yeah, Marcos, regular season award, you are the all time last place watch. But there's still another award to be given, which is official last place of the season of the trash bracket. So that's going to be very interesting to see. But what we got to talk about right now is just two matchups: Adrian versus Bringus and Danny versus Alex's old team, aka Frank. So let's go to week 15. Uh, League matchups will be finalized pending any stat corrections. Uh oh. Uh oh, Mr. Commish. It is Tuesday. Things go through on Wednesday. Will there be a reseed? Stay tuned. With that being said, let's look at the playoff bracket. Ronald gets the bye, Andy gets the bye. I think that is the fairest thing that could have happened. Two very strong teams throughout the entire season, no doubts. Maybe Danny could have been up there at some point. Danny doesn't make it to playoffs, so it's fine. Ronald and Andy are, in my opinion, the most worthy of first round teams that avoid the first round. They get the bye. And it's a matchup here, the people's matchup. Bill versus Sean. Normally, I would say I want Bill to win. I want Bill to win everything. But Sean, man, it's like everybody said, we just had this really great chemistry. And I would just really cherish if I could have Sean on the show again. Alternatively, I could have Bill on the show. I don't know, because Bill, he has mentioned, I don't know if it was a joke or not. We'll find out. Leave it in the comments, Bill. Uh, I don't know if he's comfortable with sharing his likeness. Um, Supposedly his real name is not even Bill. So, and we don't know what it is. It could be William. It could be Billathon. Could be billionaire. Billionis. It could be anything, dude. It could be Bob. We don't know. Um, but he says that he fakes his name, Bill, in order to hide his true identity. So let me know, Bill, because if you win next round, I would love to have all four of these teams on the show. That would be very interesting. But if you don't feel comfortable sharing your likeness, I will be putting on YouTube, on TikTok and stuff. And maybe you have like a very important job that you just can't afford to be associated with heathens. I totally, completely understand, but would be cool to have you on the show. But either way, I guess this right here is a matchup not only to see who makes it to the next round, but who makes it to the next D stream. That's a great award, I would say. Not to toot my own horn, but kind of toot my own horn. On the other side, Freddie versus Dave. This is a funny matchup. And because of that, I'm going to make this the matchup of the week. I think this is so funny. So funny. Freddie and Dave usually go against each other a lot in Madden, in a Madden franchise mode. They're, out of all of us, they're the two that are most passionate about Madden franchise modes. And they're going to go against each other here in fantasy football. I think that's really poetic. I think it's really exciting. It's really awesome. Usually, Freddie wins these matchups, but this is fantasy football, not Madden. So things can change. This is going to be a very interesting matchup. So, looking at that, Bill and Sean, whoever wins, will go against Ronald. That's going to be tough. That's going to be a tough matchup. I think it's a real gauntlet right here. Freddie and Dave, these are just really spontaneous, very, I would say, very random. The results are random. We have a winning streak from Freddie. We have Dave, who sometimes pops off and sometimes not really. Uh, his energy is very volatile as it is. So is Freddie's. So it's just this is a very volatile matchup, and then you're going to have a back-to-back volatile matchup because so is Andy. Andy is a very volatile type of manager who usually doesn't win. He usually doesn't even make playoffs. So these are two sides of the bracket. We have two of the people's champs plus a paper champ, and then we have two volatile teams versus a third volatile team. It's going to be very interesting. These are just two very different sides of the bracket, two very characteristic sides of the bracket. If I have to go into deep, deep analysis like I am doing now, I think it would be that. Now, I didn't pull this up. I should have. I didn't prepare for it. But there was a moment, and you guys can go back to the first episode of the stream where Danny says, "Crazy how a bad record is going to possibly make it out of divisions or something." I think that was something that I had brought up only because I thought that divisions had affected. Never mind. Anyway, Danny had put something, he kind of jinxed himself, but not really, because he didn't jinx himself in the sense that the divisions sabotaged him. I think he basically ends up sabotaging himself. So that's all we got, guys. I'm sorry I didn't have a guest, but I think it's better because it keeps you guys waiting for the next episode where for sure I'm gonna have somebody on it. I have to have somebody on it. So that's gonna be very interesting to watch. It'll probably be the four teams that go against each other. That's my goal. But if it's Ronald, man, good luck. I don't know if I want that guy back on this show. Not with his disrespect for time. Time is so relative to him. Might as well call him Einstein. I can't even give him that though. No. So whatever, dude. Whatever. Hopefully I don't have to have him. Andy would be cool to have on the show again. Like I said, Bill, if he's cool with sharing his image on the show, it'd be cool to have him once and for all. Find out what he looks like. It'd be cool, you know. Freddie, if Freddie makes it through, he's gonna have to be on the show. That's gonna be very, very interesting. But then again, if Dave wins, you're gonna have the commissioner right back on the show, and I don't think anybody wants that. So I think we all know who everyone's rooting for in that matchup. But nonetheless, boys, thank you for watching the D stream. Thank you for uh, sharing these moments with me, sharing these moments together. Um, and yeah, man, that's all I gotta say. Again, share on the comments what you guys think about the commissioner's vision, um, the divisions, and other things. Just share the love, boys. Thank you again for watching. This has been a very nice time together, and this has also been the D Stream.
100 on the